Right, let's get stuck in because I feel like there's so much to get through with you and your very incredible career. But before we jump into all things Villa, we want to know a little bit about your time in Paris. Obviously, fairly successful. Yeah, not a bad summer. You joined Emma Hayes and the US Women's National Team at the Paris Olympics. I mean, how did that come about? Like, and tell us about that first phone call.
What are you allowed to tell us?
Yeah, no, I was actually on holiday, and she just sent me a message saying, "Would you like to do a bit of work?" And obviously,
is that actually just a bit of work?
Like, yeah, I can't actually remember the exact text. I'm going to be really honest. I had a cocktail in my hand.
There is a theme, Carla.
I know. And yeah, the following morning, I thought, okay. And then she had someone, one of her staff, reach out to me, and the rest is history. But do you know what? It was I've been very vocal. She gave me a huge opportunity, and what a summer, because learning what I learned from Emma was massive. And me being me, I'm a bit of a geek. Like, I love to learn from anyone and everyone, but to get to witness that and be part of that was huge.
What was that team environment like? Was it like anything you'd ever seen before?
No, Emma has this like air of calm about her, and it was interesting because seeing her in France, compared to the end of the season at Chelsea, she had a renewed energy about her, and you could see that, and she had this calm aura about her where there was a belief in everything they did. And she just, I say it all the time. It's why, in my opinion, she's the best in the world. But there was never any doubt from moment one that they could go and win gold. And you could see that she fed that into everyone, players, staff, everybody involved.
It did feel like a massive sort of culture shift, I think, from the US Women's National Team that we saw in the Women's World Cup. Obviously, they got so much criticism, knocked out in the group stages, which no one was really expecting. And there was so much controversy around kind of the ethos and what the team were about and their hard work and effort and things. And this time, they kind of felt like a bit of a more understated US Women's National Team. And a belief that they could do it, but there was more of a humbleness there. Was that a kind of ethos that Emma's kind of tried to create with the squad, I suppose, and yourself and the rest of the team?
Yeah, I think so, because look, if we talk about humility, I always used to look at the Chelsea team as they were very, there was a lot of humility running through that, and you put that down to their leader. So when Emma took the US job, I'll be honest, did I think that I think gold was a big ask because there was a lot of work to be done. But if anyone could do it, of course, I believed that Emma could. But what she did do is go in there, and there was a lot of humility throughout the entire group, players, staff, everyone. And you can see that. But I go back to, and I use this word a lot, it was just the most calm environment. And everybody was singing from the same hymn sheet.
What was it like experiencing something like that for you, but also knowing you were doing it with a friend, because you've known Emma for so long?
You want to do everything you can to help her succeed, of course. And like I said, I would, I'd do anything to help anyone out, and particularly someone that's helped me in my journey, massive amount. She's, people don't quite realise how much she's helped me. So I think being able to be part of that and deliver what she needed us to deliver was, something that was great. I mean, it's tough because you're under pressure because, the quick turnaround as well, and you have to get, things over very, very quickly. But I love that. I love that. And, ultimately it's a very small part in a very big wheel. But yeah, it was something I thoroughly enjoyed.
Were there any sort of personal standout moments for you? I think obviously, winning gold with the US Women's National Team, your participation in the first Olympics ever, but did you love sleeping on those cardboard beds? Were there any kind of like really kind of like key moments that sort of that you look back on really fondly?
You don't believe that Emma in the US stayed on cardboard beds?
Oh, 100%. Sure, you weren't in the athletes' village.
100%.
No,
Maybe they were spray painted
nice.
gold, but they still would have been cardboard. That's what I see in my mind. Yeah,
no. Nice 5-star shiny hotels. Standout moment. Probably after the semi-final, Alex and I got asked to put together some ideas on Brazil, which we did, and we delivered that to the staff, and that was quite a nice moment because, we'd worked very hard during the Olympics, and we were prepared, of course, but it was that moment of shit, we've got a delivery. Excuse my French.
Squeaky bum time.
Yeah, I know, right? So you had to, yeah, that was a moment. And yeah, look, being there on the day of, Emma securing that gold medal was huge.
Do you feel a little bit aggrieved that you didn't get a gold medal?
No.
I feel like super unfair to not give all the staff gold medals.
Absolutely astounded that Emma in particular didn't get an Olympic gold medal. I find it fascinating, and I cannot believe that is Olympic. Actually, this is even worse for me. The two players that didn't get a gold medal, I'm sorry, but come on, ICC have a word.
Awful.
That is really bad.
Yeah. But then I suppose no other coach or manager of the other athletes you don't see like a runner who then their coach gets a medal. It's the athletes, I suppose, in a way. If I'm going to try and find some balance to that.
Yeah.
There's only so much of those bits of Eiffel Tower that could go around, right? Weren't there like bits of Eiffel Tower and all of
very
them?
heavy. Yeah, I mean, Rose Lavelle was swinging us around.
Did she break hers?
And I don't think you can break them. They were very heavy, very
Someone
big.
snapped one, did they?
I think all of the like gold and stuff just started coming off quite quickly on some of the medals.
100%. Yeah.
Oh, definitely seen some of that.
Yeah, I didn't.
Can you tell us a little bit about the after party? Like, what really went down? Like, how wild did it get?
It was wild. It was wild. It took me a few days to get over that. I'm not going to lie.
Longer than this hangover.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A few days, but no, I can't say what went on there. But it was an unbelievable night.
Swinging from the chandeliers type vibes. Yeah,
sea of vibes. Right, we're going to rewind back to May. Yep. When you said that you were stepping down as Villa head coach, which you said was the hardest decision of your managerial career, and that managing the club had been a full throttle job. Can you talk us through some of the circumstances around your decision to leave?
Yeah, it's interesting because now I've had time to reflect. I don't think I realised just how worn out I was, and I didn't realise. And whilst I look worn out this morning,
you're quite fresh.
I feel like I've got a new energy about me, and I didn't realise how much it took out of me. I knew that I needed to spend time with my daughter. I knew that I had to prioritise spending more time with her. You know, they grow up so fast. She's 5 now, so that was at the forefront of my mind. But I don't think I truly realised until I come away from it how much it mentally took its toll. And I think I lost myself a little bit. I would argue that I was an absolute shadow of myself in that last 6 to 8 months. And I truly believe, and I think I said this to the players in the meeting when I told them before breaking down into tears. I actually said to him, you know, in 6 months' time, either I'm going to suffer or the team's going to suffer. And it wasn't a risk I was willing to take. And Am I glad? Have I made the right decision? Yes, because I have a renewed energy. I feel like I'm getting myself back. I have an annoying personality, and I feel like I'm getting myself back. So yeah, I think it was tough, really tough.
Because to add into that, like you were driving 2 hours back and there and back to training.
Yeah, it's crazy to think that it's quicker for me to get from Sheffield down here to London on the train than it is from my house to the training ground and back every day.
So never mind even like the training, but also add in the commute. It takes up even more time of your day.
Yeah.
That was something Emma spoke about as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, listen, people don't see the realities, right? So I was leaving at 5:30 in the morning, and some days I'd get in, the next day or 10, 11 o'clock at night. It's tough. And even when you get in, even if you got home 5, 6 o'clock, whatever, you're still then working. You're still on the phone. You're still taking calls. Like me and Lee, the director of football, we'd be on the phone till we went to sleep. And then we'd wake up and we'd be on the phone. So before getting into work. So it was constant. And yeah, I think I've learned a lot from coming out of this, because obviously you're in it. I've been in it for 9 years solid. So, you know, they say when people get the sack is when they realise that they need a break. I'm fortunate enough not to have got the sack yet in my career, so it looks great on my CV, but not so great on my mental health. So yeah, I think having this break now is massive.
Do you think there's enough support around, like you mentioned,
No.
No.
Is there enough support? No.
We've talked
Sorry,
about this.
Chloe, let's go.
We've talked about this on press conferences, haven't we?
But obviously you mentioned, wanting to spend time with your daughter. That
Yeah.
was super important to you. And Emma Hayes kind of touched on there being a lack of support with, managers who are also parents and trying to find that work-life balance. I mean, how much do you kind of relate to that, I suppose, like that difficulty finding, time for the family.
Yeah, it's difficult. And I think that, like I said, you almost, I remember a conversation I had with Lucia Staniforth on the pitch, and we were joking. She was talking about Football Manager as in the game, and she was like, oh, you've got a lot to do as a manager. And I laughed and I said, yeah, you've got effectively 25 staff to manage, 25 players, plus managing up. I said, you have to be married to the job. And I remember saying, oh, but it's true, right? So you have to almost be obsessed and marry the job. So it's tough. But going back to your first point, is there enough support? I mean, you'll know, Rach, every week I used to shout about there needs to be more support. There has to be support in terms of welfare, psychological support. That is huge. And I was at a sports conference last week, and I caught Nikki Dissett on the way in, and I said, look, I think it's something that really needs a discussion, because we're talking about a product and the best league in the world, right? So we're talking about females that are giving everything to go and perform, but the game is going at such a rapid rate. How do we protect those as people to make sure that they have every bit of support, that they don't break down? Because now the social media presence, everything they've got to put up with. And 5 years ago, it wasn't there. So how do we help them along that journey? And there needs to be more conversation around it. And there has to be some form of psychological support at every club.
But not just for players. For managers, and this is the thing, I think sometimes when we talk about it, we think about it obviously protecting the players and from that perspective, but you've got to look at the managers and the staff as well, because there weren't easy roles you went into. You didn't have, an easy time at the clubs you were at. It was bloody graft, right? So, factor that in on how that impacts you mentally and the people around you as well.
I think that's probably why I got to a burnout stage. I think I was close to that. I think there isn't, me being me though, and everyone probably knows this about me, but I care a lot about the players. I care a lot about people, and I would always do whatever I could for the players. And if there's one thing that I'd like to be remembered for, that I believe I am, is looking after people. But you're right, at some point you need someone to potentially be there for you. But it's funny, isn't it? Because us managers, I would speak for all managers across the board, we are there to take everything off our shoulders. We're there to take away any stresses and pressures from everyone around you, right? So that's your job as a manager. But there has to be, and this is where if I went back into management, if I would like to see, I would go to somewhere, an organisation that has that full support in place.
Do you think there's kind of a space for sort of mental health support with management, or even kind of, I don't know, splitting the job, so you kind of have two people, like a co-manager in a way, kind of helping you run sort of the operations side of things, the staff, the players, the kind of the press commitments and everything else that comes with it? With that?
Yeah, me and Emma spoke about this towards the end of last season around co-coaching. Emma spoke quite a lot about it, and I think it's a model they use in the US, right? So I actually said something recently where I think that my strength, is man management. So I potentially, if I went into a new job, I would take a head coach to look after the football side, and I would look after the management side, because I think that's the way the game's going. I think it's what it needs.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think there has to be an element of, not an element, I think there has to be a huge mind shift on how we support the players and the staff, but how we support the players, because they absolutely need more support, in my opinion.
Definitely.
Who did you lean on, or who did you have for guidance? Was Emma one of those? Did you have other people that you could lean on during those? I guess even last season was a tough season.
Yeah. Funnily enough, I think that I'm Superwoman, so I try not to lean on anyone, which is probably why I got to the point I did, because I don't ever really show emotion. But people could start to, I think players started to tell that I was wearing thin. But yeah, I was on the phone to different people. I think Beardy I spoke to at times, usually when he's in the bath with a beer.
I would love to be a fly on the wall with those conversations.
A beardy beer chat.
Yeah,
no way.
But
a beardy bath beer chat. That's brilliant.
Yeah. So he's been really good for me. But there's been a few people that I would pick up the phone to. Charlotte Healy at Manchester United, the assistant. Another one that would often check in, because people don't often check in. Everyone thinks that football management's a shiny job, right? So there are people that they're touch points and you probably reach out to and you have conversations with, because there were some really tough times last year. but you have to keep digging in, and you have to roll your sleeves up and be the person that makes sure you're getting everyone together.
Is there a WSL managers group chat? And if so, what is the name?
Do you know what? There's not, but I am going to tell you what group chat we do have. After a leadership course we did a few years ago. So there's like Charlotte Healy, Vic Jepson, Gemma Granger, Gemma Davies, myself, Tanya Oxtoby. Like there's quite a few of us.
The OGs.
Yeah. Karen Hills, like loads of us.
Karen Hills.
Hillsy. And it's called Players Only. And basically it's a, I can't tell you what goes on in there. But yeah, we have a, it hasn't been used for a while. I might have to drop a message in and
tell Karen Hills I said hi.
Hillsy, I will.
See her response to that.
I'll send her this link.
Banging around.
Banging on, but
we've got a question here about sort of what stage it was in that you sort of made up the journey that was the right time to leave Villa. But we've also just spoken to you that maybe your time with Villa isn't necessarily over. So can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I'll touch on that first and I'll go back to my decision. So, yeah, look, Villa have been unbelievable from the moment I come in terms of really helping and guiding me through making mistakes early on. I was still quite new to WSL. So went on a journey with them, had a really good time there. When I was thinking about stepping down, I spoke to Damian and Monchi, who are president of football and the sporting director, two wonderful men, as you can see, doing really good stuff in the men's game. And, you know, they didn't want me to leave. They were very open about that, very vocal about that, offered me basically what support do you need. And that was heartwarming, but it made it tougher because they are just such good people and they were willing to help me in any way they could. So we obviously have a really good relationship. They believe in the work and what I've done. They believe in, you know, they're thankful, call it what you want, for the journey I've certainly taken the club on. So we discussed what it could potentially look like to stay together, call it what you want. So, yeah, so I'm going to do a little bit with Villa TV, some ambassadorial bits,
nice.
But more on the men's side. But look, it's a fantastic football club, run very, very well. So I'd be stupid not to want to stay involved with them.
On the men's side, that's interesting.
It's a club, isn't it?
Okay.
Shouldn't really call it men's and women's, should we?
Well, no, you're allowed to. But
yeah.
I think just also like don't leave the women's totally. Please.
Yeah, we need you.
Yeah. Can I ask what you miss most about Villa and managing in the WSL?
Contact time with the players day to day. You do miss that. I still get a lot of them on the phone to me, so it's fine.
Block.
I won't say who. No, you still catch up with the players, and usually when they're not getting selected or they're having a hard time. No joking. But no, yeah, you miss the contact time. But being really honest, and I've been asked this quite a lot, am I missing football management? And the answer right now is no, because I'm enjoying finding myself again. I'm enjoying a renewed energy.
There's like a healthy post-Parisian glow about you, for sure.
Yeah, love that. Might have been about all the holidays and gallivanting I'm doing.
The cocktails and things.
Yeah. But you wouldn't like say no to management ever?
Oh, no.
Okay,
No.
Don't.
Oh, listen, I'll be back in the women's game at some point.
Good.
Is that now? No. Am I really enjoying finding myself, reflecting? I think it's this period is really important for my future because there's a lot that I probably would have to understand and navigate to go back in.
Sure.
And who are some of the players that you miss the most? Are there any sort of big characters that have either given you a hard time or become like lifelong best friends or been the funniest people to manage?
There's a lot of them.
I can imagine.
But I still speak to some of them, and
I
met one for coffee only yesterday, actually. So, yeah, there's players that I will always speak to, and I think that I have a relationship with them that I will always reach out and you know, especially milestones like Jordan the other day. But you look, they're people that you care about. They're not just footballers. So, of course, you still have connections with them.
For sure.
Obviously, one thing you don't miss will be the pressure that you would have felt in last season. And I know you had such a good relationship with the seniors there, and they didn't want you to leave. So did you feel that pressure early on, or was that more something being made in the media that you could tune out?
Yeah, it was you, the media.
Me? Specifically me?
No.
I backed you.
Do you know what?
We need to go back actually. Let's drop in a clip here, Finn.
No, the club didn't put pressure on me. They took it off me. They did brilliantly with taking it off me. I put more pressure on myself than anyone could put on me because I expect so much. So I try and take the pressure off people around me, but the football club did a really good job in taking pressure away from me. And they actually come and spoke to the players when we went through a really bad spell. And they said, look, we're with Carla all the way and we want you to know that. So I thought that was powerful. And then we went to City and it was probably our best performance of the season. And that meant a lot. It meant a lot to me. It meant a lot to the players. But yeah, they did. They backed me, they helped me, they guided me. But yeah, there's no one that puts more pressure on me than me.
It was like an internal thing, kind of.
Eats away at you. Yeah, because you want to be better, right? You want to be better all the time.
For sure. Well, let's talk about some of the positive moments. We've stuck in quite a lot into the challenges that every manager faces, and you personally. But obviously, you had some absolutely brilliant, outstanding moments and performances. Like we've dissected quite a few of them in this very, very booth. But what are some of your sort of proudest achievements with the club? We've got a couple listed here. So in 2022-23, Villa obviously finished in a club high 5th place. You recruited the likes of Rachel Daly, Jordan Nobbs during your time at Villa. Daly's obviously just reached a 100-goal milestone. But yeah, what have been the big standout moments for you?
I think when I went into the football club, we set out what we wanted to achieve, and within 3 years we wanted to be a top 6 club. So did we manage to do that? Yes. So that is a massive achievement because I think people thought we spent a lot of money when quite honestly we didn't. And you know, it's not often you can really talk about it, right? But we didn't. You have to use relationships, and it was probably one of my strong points of getting players in for not a lot of money.
Strong.
Sell them a dream. So yeah, we never really, it's funny because everyone believed something completely different, but we managed to do something in a structure, in a way that we knew if we could do it, it would be really successful for years. So to do that was a massive achievement. To finish 5th was unbelievable. It's funny actually, isn't it? Because in football management, you do that, right? So you're well on track with your strategy. You do that, you're the greatest. Everyone's like, wow,
there's your bar.
God, yeah, right. And then you go and finish 7th.
Disaster.
Worst thing ever.
Yeah, awful. Yeah, awful. Don't know what they're doing. It's crazy football, right? So yeah. So I would say that, but some of the highlights for me. Man City.
I'm so glad you said that game. The Villa
Man
Park
City
game.
at Villa Park, the first one, that was incredible. And then the quarter-final of the Conti Cup in extra time, Causey backstick header to win it. Unbelievable moment. And that was my 50th game or... I don't know. Anyway, so it was unbelievable. But we had some really good times as a group. We did. And that year we finished 5th and we went on cup runs. We had some just unreal moments. So it's always difficult then. Going into a season on the back of that.
That cup game against Chelsea. And I know you lost it, but that one sticks out because it was a 1-0 loss. It was a gutting goal and you were so in it.
Yeah, and that big chance at the end.
Yeah.
Lehmann hits a target and we take him to extra time.
Yeah, and that one sticks out for me. Even though it wasn't a win, it just sticks out for me as like a really good performance.
Yeah, we did. You know what? We had a togetherness and a gutsiness about us where we never rolled over. And I think that was important. You know, we probably lacked a little bit of that last season, but the season before, in the year that we were really successful, we had that about us.
That's the difficulty, I guess, when you're not like the top 3, and even now we're starting to see the top 3 not necessarily having consistency, but it's putting those performances together week in, week out. That's the hard part, right?
Yeah, and people think it's simple. You finish 5th and you should go and do it again, or go and finish 4th. It's not that easy, you know. There's a lot of money coming into WSL now, and also expectation. So expectation, when you've got a group that have just finished 5th, to try and get their expectations to do it again is tough because everybody thinks it's a given, right? But it's not. You have to work harder than you've ever worked to even emulate it. So it was tough, but to finish 7th after the difficult start we had, I'll be honest, I think that was it. It ended up being a good season in the end.
Yeah, absolutely.
What would you say are your kind of biggest reflections or kind of key learning points during your management time with Villa? What are the kind of things that you would, if you went back into management, would be the kind of key principles or sort of guiding light that you would take back into that?
I don't think I've ever really got my staff right.
Okay.
And that's not disrespect to anyone that I've worked with, but I think you need all the right people in the right places. And through either funding or, well, actually, I'd put a lot down to finances. I think it's very difficult to get the numbers you need, the quality you need. And we had some quality staff, but not enough. So I think that is really important, and understanding what it is the club or country needs and how they're going to be successful, and making sure that those gaps are filled. So that's one thing I learned from Emma in the summer is she has the right people in the right places. She
and they go with her. Clearly,
unbelievable stuff.
A lot of them go with her wherever she goes.
Huge. So that's one thing for sure. It's probably the biggest thing, the biggest takeaway and the biggest learning, because I try to be involved in it all, but you can't be. And that's where I stretch myself too much, because your head of performance is there to lead the head of performance. And I had a wonderful head of performance in Holly Pickett, who Casey nicked to take to San Diego, and she's still there now. So she was great. But then when we lost her, we didn't replace her. And that takes its toll, because then you're trying to be involved in everything. So yeah, I think it's staffing is huge.
Okay.
How have you been enjoying watching the WSL now?
I love it.
Just watching it from the pitch, from the sidelines, or from on the TV?
Bit of everywhere. Do you know the first game, Chelsea Villa? I sat on the sofa with my daughter and we had pizza night and we had popcorn.
Love that.
Great. And yeah, I loved it. So I think I'm really enjoying it. I don't miss a game. I'm a geek. If there's 3 games on, I'll have iPad, laptop, TV.
Preach, yeah.
So yeah, I love to watch as much as I possibly can. And obviously I've been at some games and did the Chelsea game, Palace game with Sky. So yeah, I'm enjoying different ways of watching it, but I don't miss that. I don't miss that at the minute.
Do you think there's less pressure to be a pundit? Do you think?
Oh yeah, 100%. Honestly, right? I'd love people that think there's not much pressure in football management to go and live and breathe it for a few days.
I wouldn't dare.
It's outrageous.
No, absolutely not.
I wouldn't touch
It's
it with a
great
barge
if you like pressure, and I like pressure, but it's far greater than anyone realises.
What's the most pressure? Do you reckon as a referee or as a football manager?
Manager.
Do you reckon?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll bring you to the PGMOL and ask the same question.
Yeah, 100%.
I feel sorry for them.
Yeah.
I do. I think, yeah, I'm bored of saying it. I say it all the time, but they need to be full time.
Yeah.
I think, some of them have to go to work. I was talking to one of them, Georgie, and said, "What do you do?" And she said, "I'm an accountant." I said, so you could potentially be on Sky, right? Make a huge mistake. And not setting a tone there, but you could make a huge mistake and have to go to work in the morning like that. It's tough.
Yeah, I did a weekend up there with PGMOL under training. I was a photographer, and I remember speaking to one of them. I'm pretty sure she was from Germany, and she was a surgeon, and she would fly across at weekends for games. I'm like, okay, she knows what pressure is. She probably comes to the games and goes, "This is a great weight off." Actually,
yeah, but they get a lot of stick, and I used to be one of them.
No.
I don't remember that.
I think I calmed a lot in the last year or two, and now they will like me. Don't know why. Probably because I'm vocal about the fact that they need support too.
Yes,
100%. I think, that's one of the things that we've really loved. Yourself and Emma Hayes were such a massive advocate for things that would happen in the game, whether that was sort of, pitch conditions or resources or periods and things like. That's the thing that I feel most fearful about, is like losing voices like yours and Emma's. I mean, what was it like actually sort of advocating in the space at that time? I mean, sticking your head above the parapet and kind of saying those things and knowing next morning the media would be sort of,
next morning as soon as you hung
or
up
pretty much the same
what
second.
you said now.
Yeah.
I would argue I can get out of the parapet now and I can say more. And I think we can still drive change. And I think it's going to be a really important period. I've done quite a few conferences recently or talks on what needs to change. And I think the more we can, and I would argue we can talk more than if we're in a job. Well, one, because you don't have the time, but two, as well, you've got to protect the brand you're working for.
For sure.
So I think now we can really drive change. I can certainly drive change through not being involved. That's not to say I'm not going to get back involved, but I think there's an opportunity where we can. And I think we have to use our voices. I think more people need to use their voices because, like I said, when we go back to the support thing, what's going to change if we don't talk about it?
Mm-hmm.
So we have to, and we have to attack and tackle these key things that need to be spoken about and change.
From a place of vast experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think there's any managers in the WSL now that you think speaks well on stuff still?
That should speak.
That does.
That does.
And maybe it's a case of us as media asking
The right
the managers
questions.
the right questions. And maybe it was that we knew as media that what managers would respond.
Is that why you all used to turn up to mine and just peck me? And
No, I'd
tell
never
me,
peck you. I know
Carla's coming.
I knew I'd get a good answer from you, and we'd, we'd raise the concerns about the issues, and
Yeah.
I think that was key. Lauren Smith used to be good when she was at Bristol, and I know I've spoken to Rihanna about support for coaching and stuff like that.
Do you know what? It's a really interesting question, because I've been listening to all of the post-match, because I've been wondering how people are feeling. Season starts. Already people are asking for people to be sacked, which is absolutely mental after 3 games. But anyway, so I listened to a lot of the managers. But I did think the other day, and I won't say who, but I listened to one and I thought, you're now saying what you believe is the right thing to say, when sometimes you do have to say what you believe, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in answer to your question, I'm not sure there is. Now, I won't say who, but somebody in the new setup said to me last week, which was brilliant. I mean, she probably wouldn't mind me saying who, but she said, when you and Emma used to speak, we used to think, oh no, what's coming? Right? But she said, but actually, what you were saying was correct,
Yes.
and it needs to drive change. So whilst we would be a little bit fearful, we were also thankful. And I thought, okay. So it wasn't all lost, what we said.
But is it fair to say as well that during your time at Villa, you felt less able to speak about some stuff than maybe you would have in the past? Because you felt the pressure of having to be, you're representing the club and the brand, and you to stay in line with stuff.
Yeah, not just Villa, anywhere now.
Okay.
I think if I went into another job, it would be the same,
Yeah,
right?
bit more media managed, right?
Yeah, I remember Luke saying to me the day one of being at Villa, I've been told to go and get you in check. And I thought, oh no. And sometimes I'd get off a press conference and I'd look at Luke and say, did I say anything there I shouldn't have? And he'd be like,
Not this time.
Sometimes it was during the press conference and you'd be like, uh-oh, Luke is elbowing me here. He's behind the camera going,
Luke would be like, enough. Yeah.
Shot kick under the table.
Yeah, but it's funny, isn't it? Because I said something yesterday and I said, I was on a podcast last week, and lots of people were like, oh, it's so refreshing to hear you be so honest. And I thought, what have I been honest about? That's just me speaking.
Mm-hmm.
But you forget that if you're in management, you can't speak like that.
when you're
You can't
doing
speak like this.
But when you're doing like 12 press conferences in a week, and you've got some managers who'll be more upfront about stuff, it is actually so much more valuable and refreshing.
Yeah, like I'm starting to think, if I said anything here that I probably wouldn't be able to speak openly like this if I was in a management job.
Yeah.
What are the things now you wish you could have said when you're at Villa, now that you're out of the job?
Probably, even though Rachel will tell you each week, I try to get across the support piece every week, and I try to answer any question to go down that route, because ultimately we can't just come out and say it, right?
Yeah, and also,
yeah. So I think probably that, and I think, listen, after the Maddie Cusack situation, which just blew
devastated.
football, I think that should have been an eye opener.
Definitely.
We're talking a year on and things aren't changing.
Absolutely.
That's not okay.
Mm-hmm.
So it needs more people to speak up. But there is a fear that if people speak up,
you're gone.
Yeah.
Yeah. It does feel like still like a dangerous space. Like, yeah. And I suppose with the contracts that, managers have short term, players have short term, that you make the wrong move, you rub someone up the wrong way. Yeah, I think.
Look, I'm going to be honest. I said to Nikki last week, Nuko, I think we need to talk about
security,
some things of how we protect the players.
Yeah, for sure.
Because we don't need another situation of Maddie.
What can we as media do is it a case of continuing to ask questions, talk about it?
Yeah. I would say on all your press conferences this week, ask how many have psychological support, how many have welfare support. Because would you want your daughter going into an environment, in a high pressure environment, without that sort of support?
Yeah, I think it's the pressure levels have increased so dramatically, but then the kind of thoughts about the role as such haven't increased with that. Like we haven't kind of addressed the fact that this is super high pressure, and in a high pressure environment, in other elite environments, particularly when it's maybe male athletes, that's kind of clicks into place much quicker, that recognition.
Yeah. And also there is a fear, a worry. The manager has to really feel strongly about this, because if not, it's put to the side.
For sure.
And let me tell you now, it's not important to everybody.
Yeah.
So people will say, but you can spend your energy on trying to drive change to create that, or you can park it. And let me tell you now, a lot park it.
I was going to say, I think it takes a real kind of energy to get the club culture into a good space. And I don't think a lot of people maybe appreciate the vulnerability that players, especially young players coming up in the game who are on maybe £19,000 a year less in most cases, on 1-year contracts, looking to kind of make it big or get their first WSL minutes or make it or break into the England team, like just kind of how of a sort of power imbalance that creates between the sort of staff level and the player level. And yeah, I mean, it's just ripe for just creating an environment which is not healthy or safe. Yeah, it's
not wrong.
It's a very turbulent, volatile space.
Yeah. You've touched on Nuco there a couple of times. What are your thoughts on Nuco and the changes, I suppose, in the league? A bit this season, maybe we haven't seen as much this season. It's a bit of a holding season. But as someone, I guess, who's made the jump as well from Championship to WSL, is that gap, do you feel, is it worrying you? Do you feel Nuco are addressing the collective enough?
I think first and foremost, I think they'll be good for the league. I do. I think Nikki would want to drive change. I think you can see already that what they want to do, but it's not going to be a quick fix. I think there's a lot of work to do, which takes time. The gap for me is getting way too big. It's massive. How you address that, I honestly don't know. What I do know is you can't just funnel from the top. You have to funnel from the bottom, right? And you have to create from the bottom. So I think there needs to be more support for championship clubs. And it can't just be the money going into the top four, because I've heard quite a lot recently, well, but if the visibility is there with the top, then it will filter down. I would argue against that, and I think it needs work from the ground up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I think we spoke about it quite similarly, didn't we? Like last weekend, I think it was, where the media and sort of companies like ourselves kind of want to do more around the sort of lower level clubs, or the sort of clubs that sit sort of mid or bottom table in the championship. But when we do, it doesn't create sort of numbers and engagement, and there doesn't seem to be audience for it at the moment. So,
but then the same audience calls out for not focusing
for
on
more
just
varied
the top teams.
content. Yeah, for sure. But yeah, I think finally, I mean, we touched on, obviously, you're going to be probably appearing on our screens a lot more in the coming months. Aston Villa, TV, watch this space, plus a bit more punditry, plus obviously here with us in the podcast. You mentioned you did another podcast as well last week, which we won't take offence to. Yeah, we're not precious about podcasts.
Now to knock on Rachel's door to get on this.
But yeah, I mean, how have you is that sort of where you see your career sort of going for the foreseeable future, sort of more in kind of the punditry analysis kind of role at the moment?
Yeah, I do like the TV work, the punditry side, because ultimately you can still analyse games. Mm-hmm. You're talking about something you love without any pressure. Yeah, I enjoy that. And also, I think I mentioned it to you last night, I'm working on a programme with some companies at the minute around female leadership, because I don't believe there is enough out there for young female leaders within the game. So looking at how we can potentially create something to give them a platform. But yeah, like I said, a bit of punditry, a bit of how can we help and change the game, and enjoy myself,
What?
Good. Love that.
You're not allowed to do that.
I'm absolutely loving life right now.
I was going to say.